beyond what you're imagining, because it was so bad between the prison guards and the prisoners that the prisoners decided it's better for us not to leave our cells and to go to the washroom. They said we will not go to the washrooms because when we do, whatever happened to them in the washrooms happened to us. So they stayed in their cells and did not go to get washed. Oops! Imagining this over the years? Not going to the washrooms meant they did not go to the washrooms with their overnight little container, right? You know the little container that you use, diba, for what happens in the nighttime if you can't go to the CR? Those potties or chamber pots were supposed to be cleaned out every morning. But again the prisoners said, we won't go to throw out our chamber pot because if we do, we are going to get beaten up again by the guards. So they kept their chamber pots and they kept what goes into a chamber pot in their cells with them. How's the smell doing now? Are you getting the idea? Right. Well, the chamber pot's only so big, huh? So what do you do with it next? When it's, getting too much? Right? You will be seeing on the slides, as I said, some of the cells of these prisoners, and you will see what they did with their own, excuse the word, shit, okay, which they put on the walls of their prisons. And this became known as the Dirty Campaign. And how many years do you think a prisoner can live in a very small cell with his long hair and his long beard and no washing? Imagine how itchy that gets, right? Only a blanket. And he's doing this every day or whenever he does it, right? Getting the feel now. Wonderful campaign, isn't it, between the Irish and the British government? Maggie Thatcher is famous for a few important lines. One of the lines is, this lady is not for turning. You cannot change me, in other words. She would not change your mind. She would not give in to prisoners. And so it was, I think that's some rule, right? For how many years? Victor, remind me, how many years has the campaign? Any idea? About 3 years in your cell with that? Okay. 3 years, David, you reckon? No? Okay. How do you fancy 3 years in your cell like that? Pretty good, huh? Think you need a sense of humor to manage that? You need a very strong sense of humor, huh? You need something to help you keep going. Maybe you say you need a very strong faith. You need certainly a very strong belief in your cause. Right? One of the faces you're going to see there is a man called Bobby Sands. And he's quite a famous man, although you might say people your own age in Ireland is probably not. I wouldn't be at all surprised. But he is quite a famous man during this campaign. He was one of, not the only, but one of the chief organizers. He was one of the people also who tried to encourage the other prisoners. Also, people outside were trying to help in some ways. You will also see on these slides a lot of pictures which are painted on the side of houses. This was one way again that the people found to speak or to protest or to offer their resistance against the British government or against the decision, for Northern Ireland to be a colonized people. They would paint on the side of their house what are murals, great big pictures, kind of to encourage the freedom fighters, as they would call it. Okay? So you'll see that too on the slides. Bobby Sands realized that after 3 years, enough is enough, he said, we've got to do more to get through to the heads of the people who aren't even listening to us and who don't seem to care. What's the next step? Hey, what's left, huh? Next idea, please. Any bright ideas? What can we do next, guys? The next one was the hunger strike. Bobby Sands and 10 of the prisoners died on the hunger strike before finally the British government said, we'll have to negotiate. That's the context in Ireland. But think of what happens in other countries for people who want to resist oppressive regimes. I think it's important for people to realize in America today, they have other types of internment camps and prisons. Those of you who are reading again here, you'll notice a reference to Guantanamo Bay. If you don't know what's going on there, it'd be quite interesting, and here's an English teacher telling you, go do a Google search on it. See what you come up with. Bear in mind, there's all kinds of sides to the issue, but do read what's happening in Guantanamo Bay prisons. That's Americanos. It's known by all the other big countries, because you may be sure the British people know also what's happening in Guantanamo Bay. But don't go so far away. What about here in the Philippines? What happens to people in prisons here? Do we know and do we care? And what happens to all the people who want to protest against the government and have disappeared? What happens to the fact that there are more journalists killed in the Philippines than many other countries? We're about the third highest rate of journalists being shot and killed or disappeared in the world. Third highest? And what do we do or care about that fact? So yes, we have our own dictator. This play in many ways is not set in Ireland. It's set in any country. It's set in every country. Read through the synopsis here. You will see the artist, the poet, and the architect, 3 students who wanted to inspire a revolution. And having inspired a revolution, instead of having the great utopia, found themselves ironically having put in place a dictatorship. The boss. The boss, whose daughter is the architect's student. Petra. And what happens to that poet who inspired this revolution, and the artist, his friend? They find themselves together in prison. The artist's friend says to himself, what have I done? Putting into power somebody we thought would be so good, and instead turns out to be a dictator. And nobody likes prison. Can I maybe get out of this situation? Can I get out of prison? We'll see the artist making his own protest. Why? He's using his, oops, what was in the chamber pot again? Mixed with his own blood to paint his own canvases to speak out against the regime. That's his way of protesting. These pictures have to be smuggled out of the prison. The poet is also writing his verses, doing his best, and wants to smuggle them out too. Okay? That's what's going on in the storyline there. But the poet, Ansel, is also kind of tortured. He's a Hamlet-like creature who doesn't know really, which side is he on. And you'll